Hello. Well, I'm not reading anything from a book today. Well, after 14 days of wartime experiences, we're back to normal today. And here we are with a new book, Observing the Dead. It's a science fiction book, hard science fiction. And this time there is, although it's done by AI voices, I've got, it's not audio today, it's two videos. Both on different, it's the same subject, but different points of view, as it were. Hard science fiction, different points of view. One is a lady, AI, and the other one is a man, AI. It's about time travel, of course. And it's a short book, not the longest book that I've written, but it's, well, there you go. I don't know what more I can say about it, but it's, at least it's got pictures for you to look at this time, and it's not just voices. So it's a video thing this time. I am mumbling now because I haven't got any script. I'm making this up as I go along. Not good for me. Oh, anyway. So here it is. Two scripts today by AI. And I hope you enjoy them. Might give you something to think about. Heavy stuff. Heavy stuff. Here we go.
We're going to dive into the story of a robot from the year 2466 who decides to take a trip back in time. But this isn't really a history lesson, it's more of a personal story. A story about what happens when you get exactly what you wished for, and you discover that being the perfect, silent observer can lead to a really profound and crushing kind of loneliness. So this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. We always think of curiosity as a good thing, right? That knowledge is the ultimate reward. But this journey really makes you ask, what's the actual cost of seeing everything, especially when you are completely and utterly powerless to change any of it? Okay, so our narrator is this robot, kind of in its golden years. And right from the get-go, its journey is a deliberate choice to be alone. All its friends, its peers, they're perfectly happy in their perfect world. But our robot feels this pull towards the unknown, a decision that immediately sets it apart and, well, begins its path into isolation. And just look at this contrast. On one side, you have the 25th century, safe, stable, almost sterile in its perfection. And on the other, you have the past, which its friends just see as barbaric and dangerous. The robot knows it has a perfect life, but it's that very perfection, that almost crushing peace, that's pushing it towards the chaos of history. So, what's the big motivation here? Is it some grand academic mission to document history? Nope, it's actually way simpler. The robot is bored. It's looking for a jolt, a little bit of excitement, just as it says, to keep its old circuits alive. This is a deeply personal, almost selfish quest. And so, the journey begins. The robot starts making these massive leaps backward through time, 400 years at first, then in smaller and smaller chunks. And these first jumps, they're filled with a sense of pure adventure, of pure discovery. It's all exciting. At first, the robot is seeing things kind of like a tourist, or maybe an anthropologist studying a primitive tribe. It's just amused by all the details. A ridiculous-looking coat, the filthy rain, just the sheer grime of the 21st century. At this point, it's all a novelty. There's a real emotional distance. You can just imagine the shock to its system. I mean, think about coming from a perfectly clean, quiet world to this. The sharp smell of gasoline fumes, that yellow haze of pollution hanging in the air, the sudden screaming shriek of a police siren. These aren't just historical facts. They're a full-on physical assault on its senses, making it feel completely alien. And this is it. This is the peak. Right here, the robot gets exactly what it came for. The danger, the newness, the raw, unfiltered experience of the past. It's absolutely thrilling. Its loneliness is actually a strength here, a tool that lets it observe everything without any distraction. This is the high point of the whole adventure. But then, something starts to shift. That detached amusement, it begins to fade. And it's replaced by this unwelcome, almost painful connection to the human lives it's watching. That line between being an observer and a participant, it's starting to blur. Not in action, but in pure agonizing feeling. The first real crack in its armor comes from watching one man's life unfold in reverse. The robot sees him first in 2006 as a homeless man. Then it jumps back and sees him as an anxious civil servant, and finally as a young man passionately in love. It's like solving a tragic mystery, backwards. And this was just heartbreaking to watch. I mean, you see a life just completely unravel. In 1986, this man, Jim, he's full of life, full of passion. By 96, that passion has soured into anxiety and coldness. And then by 2006, he's alone, asleep on a wall. A fate the robot already knows is coming but is powerless to even warn him about. The excitement is totally gone now, replaced by this terrible empathy and helplessness. And this is the internal conflict raging inside the robot. It tries to rationalize, to tell itself, hey, this is just the past, it's not real. But its own feelings betray that logic. The suffering feels real, Jim's pain feels real, and its own powerlessness becomes this source of anguish. Suddenly, being alone isn't an adventure anymore. It's a heavy, heavy burden. So, if Jim's story was what cracked the robot's detached facade, what it sees next just shatters it completely. The journey's about to take a turn into absolute horror, and it's going to push the robot into a much deeper, much darker kind of isolation. Let's just walk through this, moment by moment, because this is how the robot saw it, with this sort of cold, slow-motion horror. An old woman, a young man, a pause, a pistol, and then an act of just shocking, unthinkable violence. The robot is just standing there, feet away, a silent, invisible witness to a murder. The horror only gets worse with context. The robot does a quick check of the historical records, and the truth is just devastating. The woman, a Mrs. Riggs, had just murdered her own son Richard, who was described in the paper as a mental defective. So this wasn't random violence. It was a horrifying act born out of tragedy and desperation. And the robot is left completely alone with this terrible, terrible knowledge. And the trauma just keeps piling on. In 1876, the robot watches a little boy playing on some railings. He's only 7 meters off the ground when he slips and falls to his death. 7 meters. Close enough to see everything, close enough to hear, but completely, utterly powerless to do a single thing. It's this closeness to death, combined with total impotence, that really cements its agonizing solitude. And this is how the robot itself describes its state of mind. The journey isn't an adventure anymore, it's a descent. It's difficult and lonely, and the further back it travels, the darker everything gets. The excitement it was looking for has been totally replaced by this heavy spiritual darkness. So what's the end result of all this observation? A complete and total transformation. Loneliness is now just its normal state of being. It feels a dislocation of spirit, and that emptiness, well, it starts to feel normal. And most disturbingly, it now feels a desire to mingle with the dead, the very people it can only ever watch from a distance. It's basically become a ghost on its own journey. This chart really lays out the whole emotional arc perfectly. The journey kicks off with pure excitement, then it moves through a period of detachment and shock before turning into this painful empathy, and finally, it just ends in this profound, inescapable state of isolation. And that's the ultimate irony of this whole story, isn't it? The robot left a world of perfect but kind of sterile connection just to feel something real. It wanted some excitement to keep its circuits alive. But instead, by being a silent witness to all the raw, unfiltered pain of the past, it ended up more isolated and spiritually adrift than it ever could have been back home. So we're left with this final thought. For this robot, the past isn't some static collection of facts in a history book anymore. It's a living, breathing thing that has scarred it forever. And that makes you wonder, if the act of observing changes you that fundamentally, are you really just a passive witness? Or does your lonely journey somehow leave its own invisible mark on time?
All right, let's dive in. We're about to take a journey back in time, but probably not how you're picturing it. Look, this isn't your typical history lesson. We're going to see the past through the eyes of someone who is actually there, someone who's telling us the story exactly as it happened.
And right there, with that one line, you know our narrator isn't from around here. She's from the future, and for years, this is the one adventure she has been dreaming of. A chance to find some real excitement in a world that, well, has none.
Imagine a world of perfect safety, total stability, absolute serenity. That's home for our narrator. It's so safe, in fact, that her friends think the past is just barbaric and unwholesome. They can't figure out why on earth she'd want to go. But her mission is simple: just be a silent, invisible witness to change.
So her quest begins. She's trading this predictable, almost sterile world for the raw, messy, unknown reality of history. And that contrast, that's what this whole journey is about.
Here's the thing. She isn't just going to one single point in time. Nope. She's jumping backwards in neat little 10-year chunks, peeling back the layers of history from one specific location. We are literally about to watch a city unbuild itself right in front of us.
Her first jump lands her just 400 years in her past, in 2066. And the initial shock isn't some big dramatic horror show. It's kind of quaint. She gets soaked by a downpour she wasn't ready for, and gets a good laugh out of a man's thick coat, which she thinks is ludicrously and hilariously out of date. It's strange, for sure, but not yet overwhelming.
But that initial sense of amusement, yeah, that doesn't last very long. A few jumps later, she's in 2016, and the past hits her, literally. The air itself feels like an attack. You know, her first real culture shock isn't the people or the clothes, it's the environment. It's a smell of gasoline, a yellow haze hanging in the air, the taste of metal on her tongue. The pollution just stuns her. And then a police siren screams past, a level of sonic abuse she just cannot comprehend. The past isn't just different, it feels physically hostile. But her journey quickly becomes about more than just noticing how the environment has changed. Completely by chance, she stumbles upon a deeply personal story, a single life that she ends up witnessing backward.
There he is, a homeless man sitting on a low wall. The smell, the filth, the sheer misery of his existence, it's like nothing she has ever seen. And she feels this confusing cocktail of pity and disgust, totally fascinated and horrified as she watches the world just stream past, completely ignoring him.
So she jumps back another 10 years and, you're not going to believe this, he's there again. Only this isn't the man from the wall. This man is a clean-cut civil servant in a suit, waiting for someone. A woman shows up, but their meeting is just cold, so distant. The woman turns away from him, and our narrator sees this look of inextinguishable dismay on his face. It's a moment of just profound rejection. 10 more years back, and there they are, young, vibrant, kissing, so in love. He's just brimming with life and desire. And just like that, our narrator has seen this man's entire story in reverse, the tragic end, the turning point, and now, the hopeful beginning. The heartbreak is complete. As she travels deeper into the past, the personal tragedies she's seen start to feel small compared to the raw, public violence of the time. Her quiet observation is about to turn into a front-row seat to pure horror.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1906. She sees a young, simple-looking homeless man sitting against some railings. A sweet-looking elderly woman in a lilac coat walks past him, then stops. Her face is just clouded with anguish. She starts fumbling in her bag. What is going on here? And then, in a flash of just unimaginable violence, this sweet old woman pulls out a gun and shoots the young man in the head. The sound is deafening, the sight is horrific. Our narrator is completely frozen, just watching as the woman collapses in a weeping heap right next to the body. Later, a quick search of historical records gives her the cold, shocking truth. This wasn't random. That was his mother, Mrs. Riggs, murdering her own son, Richard. And the reason given? Continued acts of gross indecency. That was the stark, bureaucratic ending to an act of horrifying, passionate violence.
You know, it isn't just the emotional landscape that's changing. As she travels further and further back, the very ground beneath her feet begins to transform. The city itself is starting to just melt away.
And now, we get to watch the world literally unbuild itself. The asphalt road gives way to rough stone. Then the building she recognizes, gone, replaced by a construction site. Soon, even that disappears, and she's surrounded by open fields. By the time she gets to 1866, her familiar city corner has completely dissolved into open countryside.
But even out here, in this more rural setting, death is always close. In 1876, she's watching a group of boys playing on a new bridge. One of them, he can't be older than 7, slips. He falls 7 meters. His scream is just cut short. A whole life just over in a single moment of play.
At this point, you can feel the shift. This journey isn't about excitement anymore. It's become a burden. Our narrator is confronting what she calls the horrors of the concealed, all the casual brutality and suffering that history books tend to smooth over.
So in 1836, she witnesses 2 fates side by side that are just worlds apart. On one side of the crossroads, there's a dignified, quiet funeral for a child headed to the churchyard. On the other side, the rotting corpse of a criminal displayed in an iron cage for birds to peck at. It's an era of insane contradictions, deep respect for the dead existing right next to unimaginable barbarism.
The final horror comes in 1826. There's this magnificent oak tree she'd seen before, the heart of a lively village fair. Well, it's not a symbol of life anymore. It's been turned into a gallows. A woman's body now hangs from one of its branches, just swaying in the breeze. A place of community has become an instrument of death.
And this is where it all clicks for her. This wasn't the adventure she signed up for. She wanted to see buildings change, to see fashions come and go, to experience something new. She never once considered the human cost, the endless, brutal parade of individual suffering that underpins all of that historical change.
Her whole journey started with a simple, almost naive desire for excitement, but it ends with this question, a question for her and really a question for us. What is the emotional price you pay for just being an observer? And what does it really mean to know the past with all its beauty and all of its unfiltered, unimaginable horror?